Shozo Kaga, the creator of Fire Emblem, once said that it's not a big problem if some of your characters die in Fire Emblem. I want each player to create their own unique story. Don't get caught up trying to get a perfect ending. Have fun. Shozo Kaga said this during an interview that was published in the April 1994 issue of Famicom Tsushin. While it explains why Kaga wanted permanent death to be a feature in Fire Emblem, it also explains a lot about how Fire Emblem is balanced in general. Have you ever looked at a unit in Fire Emblem and thought to yourself, why would I ever use him when I have someone who is better? Well, if you are playing the game the way Kaga intended, you might have already lost that so-called better unit, and this new guy might be your best or even your only replacement for them. Simply put, the designers expect you to play the game without resetting for lost characters. They expect you to make mistakes, and as such, have balanced the entire game around this expectation. Characters such as Athos from Fire Emblem 7 are playable so that you can still beat the game even with a weak team of characters, just as an example. Unfortunately, when you balance the game around imperfect play, it becomes heavily imbalanced when the player plays perfectly. If a player keeps resetting a chapter so that they don't lose any units, what happens is that the units that they use are getting stronger and stronger instead of being replaced by someone weaker. The enemy stats are scaled so that the chapters are still beatable even if the player has a relatively weak team full of replacements. However, if the player keeps their units, prevents them from dying by resetting, or just by playing extremely well, the result is that the player raises an excessively strong team that trivializes the game. Many people complain about the balance of Fire Emblem being poor, and to an extent, they are right. However, when you look at all of this from the perspective of playing without going back for lost characters, things are much better balanced than you might think. The system is not only balanced for imperfect play, but it is also designed to reward skillful play, because the best players will be able to keep their best units alive up until late in endgame. This system applies not only to characters, but to items and weapons in Fire Emblem as well. For example, the Pooji and the Brave Lance in Fire Emblem Thracia 776. Conserve them well, and you will be able to take them into the late and the endgame with you. But overextend a bit, and they will break, and you will have to use something else. Now, with all this said, even if this system dictates that some characters should be better than others, this does not mean that some characters should be completely useless. All characters should be viable and at least fulfill some kind of niche that differentiates them from other characters. This gives the player more options, and options is always better. Now, some niches don't need to be efficient for the player. Some niches are quite inefficient but serve another purpose. For example, if you look at Est archetype units such as Nino, who start out weak but become exceptionally powerful after you train them enough, you'll see that they're not units that are efficient to use. You can easily get through the game without them. However, it's very fun to see a character like Nino level up and see their stats get very, very good, and watch as they turn from like a wimpy mage into a powerful sage that can wipe the floor against the enemy. Part of the appeal of certain characters in Fire Emblem is the fact that you have to train them in order for them to become good. While this is not an efficient way to play the game, it's still an enjoyable way for people to play the game, at least for some. Others just want to use the super powerful paladins to blaze through the game, and that's fine. That's part of the beauty of Fire Emblem, is that there's a character, and well, there's a combination of characters that suit any play style. Now, the last thing I want to tackle in this video is that balance is not always ideal for a game. What's most important for a game is that it is fun. One of the things that people like most about Fire Emblem Thracia 776 is how many options you're given, such as all the staves in the game, like rewarp, warp, rescue, the thief staff. The thing is that from a balance perspective, these staves are a bad idea, because they heavily skew the balance of the game in favor of staff users. However, they also make the game more fun because they give the player several more options. It also allows for the player to use unconventional strategies rarely seen in other games in this series. Now that said, there is a reason why certain staves, such as warp, were nerfed in later games in the series, and that's because being able to warp a strong unit to the boss, then warping your lord to the cease point to win the chapter without any resistance takes away depth from the game rather than adding it. So there you have it. Whether you are rebalancing one of the commercial Fire Emblem games or trying to figure out how to balance your own hack, the best way to view balancing is through the factors I've mentioned. Characters don't need to be perfectly and carefully balanced amongst each other. They just need to be balanced around player imperfection, player preference, options, and fun. Thank you for watching. I need someone to review my FE hack. He needs to be someone who won't cut me slack. It's Monkey Joe, he's arrived from his golden chariot, and down he walks.